Okay, so now we start one of the most famous sugyas in Bava Metzia, uh, which is
Thank you,
called,
Yoshua Marchuk. Thank you.
that's right, I was about to say. But this one's one of the more famous sugyas called Takva. But before we get to Takva, we have to finish up the last sugi. I think we got up to the top, right to the top line. Yeah, yeah, we're
Yeah,
up
we
to
did.
yeah. Thank you. So, again, we're trying to prove or disprove whether we say migu the chashad amamayna chashad ashruas, right? Meaning, since you chashad on money, so are you also chashad on a shvua? Meaning, if we're making a guy make a shvua that he because we're afraid that he's lying, so then how can we trust him for the shvua? So if you say migu the chashad amamayna chashad ashruas, so then it's a problem all the way around. But if he's not chashed, so it's two different inyanim, right? So now the Gemara brings the last few rayas. And we had these three Gemaras already. So So we said a lot ago that there's something called the Shvuas Hesses. The Shvuas Hesses is like an intimidation shvua, meaning when a guy denies something, we always make him make a shvua because we want to intimidate him that he's really saying the truth. So if he has to make a shvua, then he must be really saying the truth. So that's called the shvuas hesses. So when the reason why you're making the guy make a shvuas hesses is because you clearly think that he's not trustworthy. Name amigu the chashar amamayna chashar ashvuasa. So why don't we say, how can you trust him to make a shvua? Why don't we say chashar amamayna chashar ashvuasa? That's proof number one. Proof number two. Remember we said on Daf Beis Amid Beis, he said the case where where the employer, instead of paying money, right? That's what the yeshivas do. He has the grocery store give them money, give them food. So he asked the grocer to give his employees food, and then his employees come to the employer and say he never gave us food. And the store owner says, I gave them food and you never paid me. So they're both going after the employer. So we said that they both, yeah.
In general, a shuas hesses, doesn't that take into account the fact that you have a chutzpah enough to lie? I'm saying,
Yes.
So the Rabbanan understood that, like, but there's a good possibility you're also saying the truth. The Rabbanan understood that. They were saying it's possibly lying, but it's possibly saying the truth. So swear to make sure you're saying the truth. How is the Gemara asking on a shuas hesses? The Rabbanan were masaking that even if they trust you, no? Like, isn't that we're talking about a kayfar kol, right?
Yeah, that's what Rashi says.
So I'm trying. Are we trying to understand this? Like the Rabbanan built in the fact that they understood that a person might be lying, but there's still a good possibility of saying the truth. How is this not taking that into consideration? Are they asking on the Takana de Rabbanan? A person is a becheskes kashrus, correct?
Correct. Well, this guy would chash. This guy.
Not if you're a shepherd. Not if you're a shepherd.
We're not talking about that. We're talking about stam alone. Somebody loans you money, and you say you deny, or somebody denies the fact that he was loaned money. So we're saying, oh no, we make you make a shuas hesses.
Right.
But why would you not just believe the person because he's a cheskes kashrus? And I understand. So we're saying, well, we don't want to believe you. That's why we have shuas hesses. But Hagufa, the Rabbanan were masaking that to go ahead and basically remove any doubt. They know they b'derek klal you're b'cheskes kashrus. They just want to establish that by you making a shvua.
Right. So that means they don't trust you. There's some lack of trust.
So then you can't make a shvua. You can't. That's a catch-22.
Okay, that's fair. I hear your point.
You're asking a question that if you can't trust him, why are you making him make a shvua? I'm saying that's the whole point of making him make the shvua. What's the original reason why they had to make a person make a shuas hesses?
Just to make sure that he's saying the truth.
Right. So it's not because they're choshid him that he's lying. They want to make sure he's saying the truth. Isn't that more likely just they're confirming that this is the truth or this
okay,
is
so well
so then why is that chashad amamayna?
There's some form of chashad.
obviously not enough. Otherwise, I don't know.
Akiva, I have a little idea. How about we let the Gemara answer? Maybe we'll see from the answer.
Not going to answer. No,
Not
that's
gonna answer, okay.
otherwise I would have
Oh,
said
it was
that.
a try. It was a nice try.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just want to understand how the Gemara. First of all, the question is half the answer. So understanding the question hopefully will lead you to a good answer.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. Anyways, I don't know. I hear you, Kasha, but I think that the slightest bit of chashash, and sure, you're right. You're going to go in circles. You're going to go in circles, masking. But maybe that's hiku for the raya. Okay. Anyway, so we said that the second case is the store owner. So they both swear, and they swear to the store owner that they didn't get paid, and they take from the store owner. I mean, from the employer. I'm sorry. They both swear to the employer, and they get paid. So. Now if we're making them swear, that means there's a lack of trust. Right? That's right number 2. I said yesterday, like the Shaimrim. Well, this one's really these shvuas go to the Shamchina. So shua he has to make meaning he denies having anything. So shua shalei pashati ba makes a shvua that he wasn't a pesheya. Shvua shalei shalachti ba yad. A shvua that he didn't use it, and shvua she'ena b'reshutzi. He has to make a shvua that it's not. He says she'ena b'reshutzi. That's not in my reshus. Now we're making him swear because we're afraid that he stole it. So name why don't we say that since it was chashan on the mom and chashan on the shvua? So we see from these 3 things that being chashan on money has nothing to do with being chashan on a shvua, and just because we're chashed somebody for money doesn't mean we won't be chashed him. Just because we're chashed him for money does not mean we think he's going to swear. And the pashat the svara l'chayim we're going to see in the next Gemara is that a person is more scared of making a shvua as a lie than money. That's what's going to come out. We will see that in the next Gemara. Amar Abaye. Now this is going all the way back on the sugya. Why is it that in our Mishnah both of them are holding on to the talis and they both have to make a shvua? So we said Rabbi Yochanan's pshat. Rabbi Yochanan said that it's a derabbanan. Right? Abaye Amar Chashinan Shema Malvi Yeshana Yesh Le'olav. We're chayshid that he has an old loan on him, meaning, and this happens all the time, unfortunately. Your guy owes money, so then you see the guy that owes you money walking around with a nice jacket. So you say, you know what? I'm going to grab that guy's jacket, and I'll get my payment out of that. So we're afraid that maybe that's what happened. And Memela, that's why the guy grabbed it. All right. So Gemara says, Ihachi, if that's the case, if we're chayshir with that, then nishko b'lo shvua, he should take it out of the shvua. Right? Which is an interesting question, because what do you mean? If he's taka thinks he's right, he'll make a shvua that the jacket belongs to him, right? Wouldn't he?
We're believing him that he's doing this for that reason.
If you really think that that's what's going on here, so then I mean, essentially, it seems like the Gemara is asking he'll take it without a shvua, meaning let him take it without a shvua, and memela he will make a shvua, right? Anyways, Ella.
No, so the Rashi explains that he wouldn't have grabbed it otherwise. We're not chayshing people for grabbing. He's chelek and Rav Yochanan. So since we're not chayshing him, he must have a good reason, and therefore, once he did that,
right? But we don't
obviously
know for sure.
It is
right. But we don't know for sure. But that's what
right. But I'm saying the Gemara is saying since we're not chayshing him, it's obviously we're almost like we down the kas, and therefore why should you be mechayiv in it?
Right. Yeah. Ella, so let's so that's Ella Chashinan Shema Safik Malvi Yeshana Yeshlo. We're not chashiv for sure, because if it's for sure, he's not going to make a shul. We're chashiv for a Safik, right? V'lai, so the Gemara says V'lav Amrina Tafis Mamayna Misfeika Mishtava Nam Misafik. He said, don't we say that if somebody's got meaning? So what's going to do now? We're chashiv that maybe the guy has a loan on him. So now you're going to trust this guy to make a shul. He's also going to make a shul from a suffix. Some Rosh Hashem's brother Avidi, Parshi inchi misafik shvua v'loy parshi misafik mamayna. People are going to separate themselves from a suffix of a shvua, but they're not going to separate themselves from a suffix of money. My timer, maman isa bechazara. Money, you can always do tshuva and give it back. Shvua, less bechazara. Shvua, there's no way that you give it back. Once you make a false shvua, you made a false shvua. There's no turning back on that. I mean, you could do tshuva that you made a false shvua, but you can't take that back. But money you could always take back. So people basically are more scared even of a suffix shvua than a suffix moment. On a suffix moment, he'll grab something from somebody. On a suffix shvua, he will not. Right? Which is again a little peek into the psychology of humans when it comes to finances. Right? Okay, so I had a person today, a whole case, and I don't know, their friends bought a gift certificate for some sort of service the lady provides, and you have to use it within 12 months, and the lady just ignored them, and after 12 months, she says, oh, you didn't use it in 12 months, so therefore I'm not honoring your gift certificate. So they're trying to get the money out of her, and she says, they finally call the rabbis, her rabbis, and she says, yeah, I'm going to get the money for you. I'm going to give the money back. And she says, I'm going to get the money back. And it comes out that she's getting the money back from the people that bought her the present, meaning she has no problem just lying and saying that the people that bought the present in the first place are going to give her back the money. So they called up the people that bought them the present, and they said, we have no idea what you're talking about. So I'm saying the person just doesn't care. The person just doesn't care that she's just lying about these things. They want to know what to do. As you go to Bezdin, it's going to cost you more than the few $100s that it is. They want to know if they go to small claims court, whatever. Anyways, yeah. So sometimes people
12 months term. There's a 12-month term. What's the shaila?
What do you mean? No, they tried to get it before the 12-month term. She never returned their call. She never returned their calls, so they're pretty upset. But yeah. Anyways, okay. So by Rav Zera, takfa echad b'fanenu mao. Oh, so now takfa means to grab. If one of them grabs it in front of us, then what's the din? Meaning they come into Bezdin, tripping over each other, right? And they come in pulling and yanking it straight out of like a Three Stooges, right? We haven't had a Three Stooges reference in a while, right? They're coming in yanking each other. And then one guy finally wins, right? So then what's the din? Does he keep it? Does he not keep it? So they're going to ask, what's the case? Hey, if the other guy's quiet, I do. So then he's maida. Either katzavach, and if he's yelling, my havalei lemeva, what more should he do? He's the guy grabbed it away from him, he overpowered him, and he's screaming that he took his shirt or whatever it was. So what's the case? Like when the guy grabbed it from him, he was quiet, sort of like he almost admitted it, and then he started yelling. So what's the din? If he was quiet, that means he's maida. What do you say? No, since he's yelling now, and then it reveals to us the shasik meikara. The reason why he was quiet in the first place is the Rabbanan saw, and they saw him grab it from me, so I didn't think there was any reason to say anything. And now I see that the Rabbanan are not saying anything, so therefore I'm going to yell. Right, so that's the shot. So Rav Nachman Tashima, that's only when we talking about with our Mishnah. That's when they both grab onto it. But if the talis went out from one of them, meaning one of them had the other one that got the whole thing, then we say, right? So he has to. The other one has to bring a raya. So basically, if one of them wins the tug of war, then the other one has to bring a raya. So hey, what's the case? If it's like we just said it, right, and meaning that only one, by the time they came into Bezdin, only one of them is holding on to it. Pshita, so it's pashut. If a guy comes into Bezdin with a jacket, and another guy comes in and says it's mine, so it's pshita that he had somebody right. Must be it's talking about the shiloh that we have, which is not that they come into Bezdin with it, with one guy holding it. It must be that the tug of war happened in Bezdin, right? So that's the shaila. So we say l'chayra. We see that's a proof of Metzia mechor l'varaya. So we say loy hachamay going to also look on to the tisa. A whole complicated. It's not complicated case, but a whole intricate case. They both came in front of us when they were holding on to it. Bamrina lahu, and we said to them zilu pluga. We said go. They said go divide it. Bezdin told them divide it. But nafku they left. V'hadar asu, and they came back. Kitafas l'chad minayim. And when they came
Did
back,
Bezdin say go divide it and both of you have to hold on to it every second? What do you want them to do?
No. So they did. Bezdin Paskin go split it. So they left Bezdin, and then 10 minutes later they come back to Bezdin. One guy's holding it, the other guy's not.
Isn't that what we wanted? What did we want them to do?
Well, we're gonna see.
Cut it in half.
We're gonna see in tomorrow's daf. Yeah, that's gonna be the question. Does it mean to cut it in half? Does it mean to sell it? But bottom line is we sent them out to split it, right? And then Hadar Asu Kitavas Lachamina. They came back, and one of them was holding it. So hi Omar Adu Idoli. One of them says, yeah, the one holding the talis says, you see, he was mighty to me. For hi Omar, I'm not mighty to him. I rented him the talis. Right? So, and that's the case. That's somebody's why? 5 minutes ago, right? Meaning until now, you were chaysh, these guys are gazlan, right? You come into Bezdin with a tug of war. Then we tell you to split it. You come back 5 minutes later and you rented it to him. What you trust him all of a sudden? And you rented it to him without witnesses? You're crazy. So that's one case. One way of saying the case. It's talking about where Taka, one of them held it when it was coming in. Only one of them had it. The other one was trying to he sort of I don't know how he was and he just had the edges of the talus. I mean, he was holding on for dear life, put it that way, right? So clearly it was held by one, but the other one did have his hands on it, sort of like with a is it an interception? Is it if anybody knows what I'm talking about with football, is it who has his hands on the ball more? Right. And even according to Sumchus, who holds that money, that's in a suffix. He split without a shvua. The Sumchus, the sircha lav klumhi. Even Sumchus is made that sircha just holding on to the edge is nothing, and therefore it's going to be a Metzia mechor l'varaya. So again, we wanted to bring a raya from this case that if one guy comes marching in the Bezdin with the beged, so Metzia mechor l'varaya, so we tried to fit in that the only way to understand that case is if they were fighting, they both held on to it, and then one got it away from the other. But then we shlugged it. We said, no, there's two ways that we can understand the case. Either they were sent out of Bezdin to split it, and they come back, only one of them had it, and the guy tells him, I rented it to him, to which we tell him that he's nuts. So Mamela, he loses the case. Or it's somewhere where one guy's holding on to it, the other guy has it on the edge. So we also say you lost the case. So we have no answer. So now the Gemara asks on the first wide line. If you say, so we don't have an answer to the question. So there's two options. If we say that if one of them grabbed it in front of us, we take it out of his hands. If somebody makes it hektish, he doesn't grab it, right? He just says, you know what? You're holding on to my talis. I'm making it hektish, right? So, of course, if we're saying that if one of them gets it away from the other one in front of us, he doesn't keep it. So, of course, if somebody makes it hektish, it's not going to work. But if we say that if a guy grabs it in front of us, we don't take it away from him. Then what happens if he didn't take it away from him, but he just made it hektish, right? Meaning they're both holding on to this talis, right? And then this guy says, you know what? I'm not gonna wrestle with you to get this talis. I'm gonna make it into hektish. So now the Gemara Shaila, L'chayr is not going on the half that he has in his hand. That avada he can make into hektish. That's his, right? We say cholkin. We're talking about he's making the other guy's half into hektish. right? So that's the shaila. Basically, can you make it hektish? Does hektish, making it hektish, replace grabbing it? So what's the shaila? Since we say that saying something to gavaya is like giving it over to a hedjit, command the takva dummy. It's as if he grabbed it. Or we say no. The bottom line is you're not holding on to it. It says a person has to make his bias kodesh. My basic rishus, just like in order to make your house hektish, it has to be in your property. Anything has to be something in your rishus. Lafuke high comes to exclude this case. The labor rishus, it's not in his rishus. He's having a tug of war of this thing, so it's not in his hands. Right? Fine. So that's the Gemara Shaila. So Tashema Dahi Masusa on Tomabeis. So it was a bathhouse, right? So obviously they're not grabbing onto it, but there was a bathhouse that two guys were fighting over who owns it. Hi Amr Didihu. This one says it's his. Hi Amr Didihu, and this one says it's mine. Meaning each one's Didi means mine. Again, Hi Amr Didihu. This one says it's mine. Hi Amr Didihu, and this one says it's mine. Kom Chad Minayo Aktusha. One of them gets up and makes it hektish. So Parshimina Rav Hanani Rav Aishi V'Kulu Rabbanon, and because of this, one of them again they're fighting over a bathhouse. One guy made it hektish. So then the Rav Hanani and Rav Aishi and all the Rabbanon stayed away from this bathhouse. Normally Rav Aishi l'Rabba ki also come into Rav Chisda l'Kafri. When you go to Rav Chisda and Kafri, Bamine, ask him what he would do in this situation. He also l'Sura when he came to Surah, which was on the way to Kafri, Rashi says. So Amalei Rav Hamnuna. So I guess he must have asked Rav Hamnuna. And he said, Masnisini, this is a Mishnah, Safik B'chairis. So if you have a Safik B'char, so basically a Safik B'char is you don't know if it's the oldest. Right? You don't know if it's the oldest, meaning, let's say it could be a human or an animal, right? Echad B'char B'char Adam, Echad B'char B'hema. Meaning maybe if the mother had a miscarriage before, so you don't know, and let's say you don't know how pregnant she was. It's very, very common shaila with humans. They have a miscarriage, 40 days, 2 months, maybe stop growing, etc., etc. So we have no idea whether that was considered a viable. Well, viable, it doesn't have to be viable, but it just has to have at least 40 days. So a lot of times we tell them to make a pidyon amen without a bracha. All right. So anyways, so if you have a suffix b'char, whether it's b'char adam, whether it's kol behema, whether it's tar, whether it's tameh, hametzim mechaver al varaya, you have to be mitzim mechaver al varaya, meaning the kohen has to prove, right? He's the mitzi, right? Because he wants to take this animal. He says it's mine. So the owner, the balabas or whatever, says it's not yours. So if the kohen wants it, it's on him to bring a raya that it's a b'char. But if the kohen already got it, meaning the kohen already got the animal or the human, and then the shiloh comes up, then it's going to be, the proof is going to have to be on the Yisrael to get it out of the kohen. That's what the Gemara thinks right now. Right? Vatani Allah, and we learned Asurim Begiz of Avodah. It's still Asur, this animal, let's say it's an animal, it's a Safek B'char, you're not allowed to shave it for the wool, and you're not allowed to work with it because maybe it's hektish, right? It's a Safek hektish. So we're saying that even though it's Mitzvah Mechaver al Varaya, but still you can't use it. But here, and now this is where the sugya gets called this takva kayin, ein Metzia nasim. But here we say, right? It says that if the kayin grabs onto it, then ein Metzia nasim. We don't take it away from him. Meaning, if the kayin doesn't have it yet, so the kayin has to bring the proof. But if the kayin takes it, then the Yisrael has to bring the proof. And if he didn't take it, it's still also begiz of avodah. It's still also to use the animal, right? So meaning, even though the kohen can't actually grab it, it still becomes also, right? So memela what? So in this bathhouse, even though the kohen, they're fighting over the bathhouse, and it's not necessarily one guy's over the other, but if one of them made it hektish, you see, then now it becomes a suffix hektish, and therefore it should have hektish. And then the same thing in our case, Right? Same thing in our case with if a guy, they're fighting over the talus and then one guy decides to make it into hektish. So Amarle Rabba said back to Rav Hamnuna, Kedushas Bechar Kamrat. You're talking about the Kedusha of Bechar? You can't compare that to this. Really, I would tell you that if the kohen grabs it, we take it out of his hands. But meaning we don't say right? Meaning we when we say it means that the kohen has to prove that this baby is a bechor. And it's still asur gizav. Why to kedusha? Because the kedusha that came by itself is different. That's much stronger. So a bechor has automatic kedusha. The second it's born, if it's taka bechor, it's automatic kedusha. Masha'en kain, if a guy decides to make something hektish, that's him.
See, I'm just trying to understand the Gemara. The Gemara's question about that the Gemara that's trying to figure out from Tafu Kayin. The Gemara knew that the Yisrael, if he's holding it, has a din of a Ma'aseh Mechavera on the Kayin, and yet it's still Kaddish in the Yisrael's hands. So how is that a dogma to our case? How is that parallel to what our case is talking about?
Which case? What are you saying?
We're trying to say that if you're matish something, it's as if you're being Tafu Kayin. It's as if you're grabbing it. You're take of it. But so we say that Vice the Kedusha works on such a level that it's able to do that. But here, the Kedusha is working even without the Kohen grabbing it, and the Yisrael has still a din to it. So what does the Kedusha of the Bechor have to do with grabbing it or not? The Kedusha is there whether it's grabbed or not.
No. You say, and the Gemara is Havamina.
Yeah.
I hear.
The Kedusha is that we know the Kedusha is there whether the Kohen grabs it or not. So what's the riot to the Kedusha over here working to grab it?
All right. I mean, isn't essentially that's what the Gemara is doing?
In the Gemara's Havmin or Teretz?
In the Teretz.
I understand that. What's the Gemara? But the $1 million question is, what's the Gemara asking? What's the Gemara's riot from Tafu Kayin?
Right. I hear. I'm not sure. Okay, I hear you, Aaron. I hear. It's only in the Havamina. No. Yeah. Okay, it's a good point.
You threw in a line that it's compared to our case in the Mishnah. In the Mishnah, that two people grabbing palace, and one of them made it hektish. Right? I understood you made that analogy. Can I come to your house and make your talus hektish?
No, we don't know whose it is.
Right. So until you know who, how can you make it if you don't know what it is? How can you make it hektish? How can hektish be chal?
What do you mean? That's the shaila is it's yours. Al Suffolk, no? Al Suffolk.
Till you know that don't you have to have bilis first? It doesn't have to be yours before you can make it hektish?
No. That means it's on the tzad that it's his, it's hektish, no?
I don't know. The fact that the tzad that it's not his should block the hektish.
No, but that's a goof of the question. The same way you could grab it away, and you say it would be, if you theoretically, whatever you did would be when you grab it away. So can we say hektish is the same as grabbing it away? Right? I think. This is why this is a complicated sugya. This Taklukayin is a lot of lumdus here. Anyway, so Rabba is saying that you cannot compare kedusha, man-made kedusha, I guess let's call it man-made kedusha, to natural kedusha. Fine. Somebody Rav Hanani l'Rabba. Rav Hanani said to Rabba, Tani the Masaleach, I can bring a proof to you. Hasfekas nechnasen l'dir l'sasher. L'saser, I'm sorry. Sveikas, you put it into the deer is the corral, in order for it to be meiser. Meaning, the way meiser works, meiser behema is every 10th animal. You let it go through the door. Like it says by Nasana Toikif. We all go under the whatever the shevet. Yeah. So it's saying that mice. That's what happens with meiser behema. You let it go through the gate, and they brand every 10th one, and that becomes hektish. So if you have sveikus, meaning we don't know if the animal is a bechor or not. Yeah. So then you have to do some form of pidyon, right? But
we had a Gemara that if you called out number 9, number 10, that also became Hekdesh. 3 of them could become Hekdesh.
yes, we've had a Gemara like that. Yes, we had a Gemara like that. Very good.
But that's not the case. That's not the case here.
No, here's not the case. Here,
They're saying that they become Hekdesh. You make it Hekdesh.
No, but that's not that. I don't think that's the case here. Here is talking about where the animals themselves is a suffix whether they need it. Right? Yeah, so anyway, so if you have a pigeon petach hamor, right, we're going to see this in tomorrow's stuff. You have a pigeon petach hamor, and you have to be paid it, but we're not sure if it needs pigeon or not. So basically, you take a sheep and you paid it onto the sheep, but then the person keeps the sheep because the kohen can't take the sheep because of Metzia Mechol Araya. So now you have to do, but you do have to do meiser. You have to be meiser, use meiser on that of that sheep. Right, so sveikus they go into the deer to make meiser. And if you think that we thought that like Abaya that if the kohen grabs onto it, meaning if the kohen grabs the suffix pigeon, the suffix animal, then we don't take it away from him. So then why do these sheep go into the what do you call it? Into the corral? I don't think corral is the right word, but nimtza zeh paidim might have been shel kohen. What's going to happen is, so now this animal might be belonging to the kohen, and he's going to take
the pen.
The pen. Okay, the pen. There you go. What's the difference between a pen and a corral? I think corral's like for horses, maybe.
No. Where's our resident rednecks on the daf?
Yeah, Simon had surgery, so he should have a refuah shalem. I think he's doing
Oh,
all right.
did it go well?
Yeah, Baruch Hashem. Yeah, he says it went well. Yeah.
A corral is that stones that they take out of the ocean. That no,
that's a coral reef.
That's with 1 R. This is with 2.
Oh.
I was wondering if Gershon was on the daf. Maybe he would know the difference.
Yeah.
Corral has no real purpose. It's just where they collect horses together. A pen is to guide them somewhere else.
Is that so?
Usually.
Okay, trust you on that. Either way, the point is that if this guy is going to take this animal, this sheep, as his meiser, and it belongs to a kohen, then he just potted himself on an animal. It doesn't belong to him. Right? So l'chayra, it's a raya that talk for kohen might see an isim yoda. It doesn't have anything to do with the kohen. Fine. So Amalei Abaya, imishum ha. If you're going to say that, like to say lamar, that's not a proof to Rabbah. Right? Why? Because we're talking about a strange case. We're going to Leslie Elatisha Vahu. Very specific case, not a strange case, specific case. It's talking about where the guy has 9 sheep and this one, the suffix one that he used for the pigeon petach hamor. The monoshach, because now you have a monoshach. If it's a bar chiyuva, so now he has 10. So shaper kamaisa, so he took off the 10th one because that didn't belong to the kohen. And he la bar chiyuvahu. If it's not a bar chiyuva, so that's sheep number 10, which means he only has 9, and 9 is not chayiv in ma'aser. Tisha la bar isurinenu. If he only has 9 sheep, he's not chayiv to be ma'aser. So Abaya seems to have a very practical way of answering up this mission. So Hadar Amar Abaya went back and said, Lav milsi da amri. But my proof is not a proof. Why? The Sveika la barisurihi. Because bottom line is, anything that's specific is not considered part of Meiser. Right? The Tanan, because we learned in the Mishnah, Kafetz If one of the animals jumped back into the pen, right? Meaning you're letting them, you're going to go through the door of the pen, and every 10th one is going to be Maisa. And then one of them jumps back in. Then Kulon Paturin, all of the sheep become Patur. So basically, if you're not interested in giving Maisa Behema, you should root for one of these animals to jump back into the pen, and then you'll save yourself a lot of money, depending on how many sheep you have. But Kovet Zechem and Amenuyin L'Soichan, Kulon Paturin, they're all Patur. Right, because the ones that went out of shortput, they were already counted, right? And the one that jumps in, so now it's all. How does it say? Rashi says, we don't know, right? It's basically we don't know which animal it was already counted. So Mamela, it's going to pater the rest of them. Which Taisus asks exactly what Gershon and Akiva we're going to ask. Why isn't it? Why is it bottle? Right?
Is it Rabbi Yehuda?
Why isn't it bottle?
Bottle?
No, but it's a what's it called? It's a davar shebeminyan, right? There's no bittul.
Yeah, that doesn't really. That would be a drabanan, answering a deraisa.
I'm saying so. Right, anyways, the rabbanon.
Rabbi Yehuda would hold it's deraisa.
Yeah.
According to Rabbi Yehuda, bottle, and it's.
So anyways, I ain't Toysvis in about this. But anyways. It's an interesting thing. So if one of the sheep jumps out and jumps back in, so everything's pot. And if you say that a suffix needs meiser, lasem and monoshach, so then let him give meiser and monoshach. If he's a bar chiyuv, meaning give the 10, let the 10 go through. If none of them are the sheep that jump back in, so good. So you give meiser, shaper meiser. So it's good you give meiser. If la bar chiyuv and it's not bar chiyuv. Nifta minyan harai. It's potter with the minyan harai. Because he's not going to get to 10. Right? Because if you counted 10, and this one was the 10th one, so now you never had 10 in the count. Minyan harai potter. The minyan harai, it potters the whole thing. So on to Amid Aleph now, we'll just go a few lines down because it's one big sugya. So then what are you going to say? Right? Why is it all potter? We only give Maisa from Vadais, Maisa Bema from Vadais, and not from Sveikas. So Mamela, so we're going to say that, so Mamela, we don't give Maisa from Sveikas. So therefore, there's no, the Abaya's slug up of the proof to Rabbah doesn't count. So Achanami, here too, right, when we're trying to do, we pay the Sveikas of these sheep that you use a pidyon petach hamar, asiri vade amar rachmana, beloy asiri safik and not asiri safik. Fine. So that's the sugi. So now they want to just finish off a few lines. Amarli Rav Acham Yidifli Ravina. Rav Acham Yidifli said to Ravina, right? So he said that sheep that are sveikas, you give ma'aser from. So what does this mean? My sveikas. What type of sveikas are we talking about? Right, the Safik Gemaiser, Elam Safik Becharas. If you say that they're all Safik Becharas, right? Meaning you don't give Meiser from Bechar. Bechar is not counted as part of the Meiser. Yeh Kodesh Amar Rachmana Torah says it should be Kodesh, V'lo Shekvar Kodesh, not something that's already Kodesh as a Bechar. Ella Safik Pidyon Petach Hamar. It's a Safik of a Pidyon Petach Hamar. Right, that's which is the case. We've been saying the case. If the Ramna, I mean, a pidyon petach chamar is it's the only time that you have a pigeon by a treif animal is by a chamar. Now you have a donkey. You see all the pictures about it. So savik pidyon petach chamar. So you paid it, but you're not sure about it. So now you have this sheep that you were paid it with, or lamb, or whatever. It's a goat, and it doesn't have any kedusha because when you paid a pidyon petach chamar. The sheep doesn't have kedusha. Because Rav Nachman, Amar Rav Barabu, Yisrael sheyesh asara safik pigeon, safik pitrei chamar b'soich pesach. Let's say Yisrael has in his house 10 suffix of pitrei chamar. Mafresh alein asara saying he's mafresh on them 10 seh. Right, meaning you're not allowed to use the bechor. So therefore, since they're all safik bechoros. You have to be paid. You have to be paid to them, right? And now Mameli he could use them. but you still umasrin, and then he also takes meiser, ve'hein shaloi, and they're his. So basically, what the Gemara is saying, that would be the case. The case is where a guy has 10 Safek Pidyon Peter Chamors, he's paid to them, and he also has to give meiser on them, right? And that's and that would be the case. Fine. Okay, then now the Gemara paskins, what's the story with the bathhouse? But that will be tomorrow's daf. Bez Hashem. Okay, we'll do it till him. Okay, Pei Gimel.